there, welcome to another show. I'm actually going to talk about Ray Harryhausen films. His early films today, which is 5 Million Miles to Earth, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Earth versus Flying Saucers, and It Came from Beneath the Sea. So there's a whole bunch of films here. I didn't even read them in the proper order. But yeah, these were the early films. These were the Harryhausen films he made in the 50s for Columbia during the sci-fi peak. Mad Monster attacking the city, stuff like that. That's where you get started, because Harryhausen can do monsters. That's where they kind of started before they moved on to doing things like Sinbad movies and Jason Argonauts. So they got a start. This is where Harryhausen really learned his craft. They knew his craft, but he managed to really get it down so that we went to the bigger movies afterwards. That the Sinbad, he could do multiple monsters. And these movies, they tend to be the one monster going through the whole film. And there's more talk scenes that it goes from film to film to how satisfying these talk scenes actually are. So I'll start off with the weakest one I found to be the hardest one to deal with, which was It Came from Beneath the Sea. This one is... I've never managed to really enjoy this one too much, because the lead actress is so bad. She's so terrible in it that it just sinks the film, because she's meant to be the romantic lead. She's meant to be competent scientist and love interest, Kenneth Tobey, and he's good. He's a submarine commander. He comes into contact with the creature early on. He has to try and hunt it down through the rest of the film. Anytime he's doing the Macho Man stuff, it's great fun. He's got a good presence. He's very reasonable as he's an actor who can be very masculine but also very reasonable. He will listen to other people who are better at him in certain fields. He'll listen to the scientists and say, okay, what do you think? Okay, let's do that then. It's not like an unreasonable character. He's always got this thing of someone who, in movies, he always has managed to show someone who's thinking their way through a situation. Even the script sometimes has him do dumb stuff. It's always a character. He always suggests someone who's thinking, and someone who's dealing with people and trying to figure out what to do next. That's what he manages to project. And there's another scientist. There's a male scientist there, an older male scientist, who's also quite good, but kind of bland. You kind of forget he's there half the time in scenes. The leading lady's terrible. I mean, she's one of those actresses who just start the dialogue and seem to stop, and in between scenes where she's not, in between the bits where she's not talking, the lights seem to go out in her eyes. It's weird. It just feels like her body language changes if she's in character and she's not in character, and it's very frustrating. You just feel an actor is not concentrating through the scene. And you get a sense that these films do not have many takes, so you need to get it right quick. And I just get a feeling that this was probably not a performance that people were that impressed by when they're making it. She's just kind of lifeless and dull. And they're trying to have these scenes in between the monster stuff, because there's only so much budget they've got for the monster stuff. So the film starts out really strong. The first sequence actually is in the ocean with a submarine. There's doing some tests with this new submarine, and then they get attacked by the monster. And you're actually in the submarine with them as they try and find ways to escape from it. Eventually escape, but it's like, okay, what the hell was that? And when they get back home, they realise there's some lots of goo on the submarine that is really odd. So then they take the goo to these scientists who start to investigate it. Then other places are attacked. They have to try and find out what happened there, what happened to these other places, and what was natural events and what was something more sinister. And they end up on this beach where these plunge marks where the creature was, and eventually the creature attacks San Francisco. All of that's good fun, but it's very basic. This is basically a 50-minute film padded out with these dialogue scenes with this horrible actress. That's the problem with the film. Is anytime it's the monster stuff, it's good fun. Anytime it's this actress, it's like, oh god, please make the pain stop. So and she turns up during the monster scenes too, and it's like, just can we get back to the monster, please? The monster scenes are actually okay, but they're not inventive because the monster can't leave the sea. He can crawl up the Golden Gate Bridge and destroy it, or he can have his tentacles go over the pier into some of San Francisco and then get the flamethrowers at it, and it burns way back into the bay, and then gets attacked by the submarine and then ends up getting blown up. It's well done, but there's nothing there that feels that threatening. Just to avoid a monster, you just walk and land a little bit and you're fine. Just don't go out in the ocean and let the submarine take it out. That's it. So it's a kind of a nothing film ultimately. It's well done in sequences, but the limitations of what they have with the monster and the limitations of what can be done with it just kind of screws up the film. One of the reasons why it looks so bad is it actually followed on from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Even though there were different producers, this was the film that was made before it came from BBC, and it's a much better film. It's more atmospheric. It just does everything better, because this one is a beast, it's a dinosaur. A dinosaur actually inspired, in some ways, Godzilla, because this came a year before Godzilla. And it's just a creature coming from the sea. Initially, they're trying to work out what it is. Is it there? There's a terrific sequence where this old professor who's trying to work out if the creature exists or not actually goes underwater and he sees a creature. it's wonderfully just atmospheric. There's some stuff on the ice and going through the ice in Antarctic, find this creature, and it's all wonderfully done. It's just better directed and just more enjoyable to watch, really. So the Beast of Phantom 20,000 Fathoms directed by Eugene Lurie, and it's just like, it is wonderfully done, even though it's not like the most astonishing story. It's just a beast that gets found in Antarctica, just like any other kaiju, and gets his way to a major American city eventually. But it just works. I mean, Kenneth Tobey's in this one as well, but he's a supporting part. He's trying to work out what happened in Antarctica. Paul Christian, with his accent as an American scientist, he's also dealing with these other American scientists. And it's just like a lot of legwork, but it's enjoyable. You like the characters a lot more in this one. There's nobody who's absolutely terrible, give a terrible performance. And you also have a really good finale where the creature can go through the streets like a dinosaur attacking people, and you end up in Coney Island where they're burning the get creature inside, and where all the roller coaster rides are, and end up burning it from there, like going up to the roller coaster ride and shooting down, burning it. It's just wonderful. I mean, there's like everything here just really works. I should say I watched all these films in the projector, so I actually got the bigger screen experience. But this one's always been fun. I mean, even the small screen, this one's more fun. It moves at a decent clip. You're not, even though a lot of these movies you have to like, the pacing suffers a lot from you having to save your money from one special effects scene to the other. It still works because you like the characters, and the director actually has made it atmospheric. There's like the sequences underwater looking at the creature with the old scientist really works because you like the character. And this guy's just trying to go on holiday and he keeps getting pulled back into this situation. Even those sequences, you've got his female assistant who's the leading lady who can eventually linked to the lead scientist. That works well enough. You like these characters, you like all the characters, you like the situation, you want to see them survive it. It's just an enjoyable film. It's just a well-made monster movie, And it's kind of funny because you watch a much more impressive monster, and it came from beneath the sea, which has got all these tentacles, and there's a big sea monster. And it's not half as impressive ultimately than what this monster can do in this film, because it's just a more interesting monster. It attacks a lighthouse, which is great. It does all that stuff, and it's just fun because it can move and land, it can be threatening. and it's just way more enjoyable. So go watch this one. That's really good. Okay, now we're going to Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Earth versus the Flying Saucers is it's exactly what you think it is. It's that kind of movie that's exactly, you know, it's Earth versus the Flying Saucers. It's actually written partly by Kurt Sodermack, who did a lot of did the Wolfman movie. And it's based on a book all about UFOs, apparently. Yes. Hugh Marlowe's the star of it, with Joan Taylor. Director's Fred F. Sears. And basically, it's every alien invasion movie. It's nowhere near as good as some of the other 50s sci-fi movies, of his ilk. I mean, War of the Worlds is a more enjoyable film. But they don't have Ray Harryhausen special effects, but it's in colour and it just works better. And a lot of other stuff like The Silent Earth works better, and there's lots of other sci-fi movies that then works better than this one. But it works well enough for what it is, because it is basically about alien invaders. These aliens are in their flying saucers, and they come down and are going to invade Earth because their planet has been destroyed and they have all the resources. So they're just trying to intimidate the Earth to make them surrender. So they'll try to give them enough time to actually come up with the surrender. And of course the Earth people are being like, oh no, we're going to fight, we're going to get weapons. So the lead scientist figures out something about the way the ships work, the gravitational manipulation the ships use, and finds a way to mess with it. Because they know if they can get the aliens out of the ships, they can shoot them. They'll go through their protection quite easily. And these aliens are old and decrepit, and they have to have these special protections, which makes them vulnerable. But once they're living in the ships, they're invulnerable. So they have to get these weapons and shoot them down from the skies. And basically that's the last third of the movie, is they're going from place to place, from just shooting these spaceships down. And it's great fun. I mean, there's so many shots from this film that Mars Attacks parodies. I mean, because they're attacking Washington. And there's lots of stuff about them trying to communicate with the aliens and try to find out what they were about. Because the army shot them first before they... so the army shot first, they're wondering, did we mess this up? But again, they were shooting down satellites. And it's like... It ultimately becomes a case of, no, they are the villains. They throw these people out from the flying saucers from way up high, just splat. They're bad, they deserve to die horribly. It's enjoyable to watch them die. But it's as basic a plot as you can possibly do. And you have all these scientists trying to work out how to survive, and that's the kind of downtime plotting you have, But it's just enjoyable trash. I mean, it's basic as it can possibly be, but you like the characters well enough. They are enjoyable. They do some stupid things, it doesn't matter, but they're still out to save the Earth, so it just works. It's exactly, if you think about 50s sci-fi pulp movie, this is exactly the film it is. It's so enjoyable, especially when you see the flying saucers in the background, the planes in the foreground, and so the live action actors and the flying saucers in the background. And it's always been superimposed, like using green screens and stuff, and the two just put together. But it works really well. Even though you know how they did it, the technology just works so well. It's just very enjoyable to watch. So, I mean, in some ways, this is the most basic of the four films. It feels just pretty much every scene you can know where it's going. Because you've seen the films, you've seen the parodies of these films, but it still works. It really works. I mean, I would happily rewatch this film anytime. It just delivers on what you want from this film. So that's that one. And then we're going to the final one, which is 20,000 Miles to Earth, which in some ways is my favourite of them. Well, this one and the Beast of 20,000 Fathoms are the two I liked most. This one might win it because it's got a monster attacking the Colosseum. I'm easy to please. But it does have the best plot. They go to I think they go to Mercury and they get this creature back. The first manned mission to Mercury. On its way back, the ship crashes, in Italy, Sicily, off the coast. They try and rescue them, but it's a failure. But a few survive and go to the hospital. But a sample creature has basically gone from the ship to the land. It gets helped by this old scientist who's sold it from a kid who's trying to make money. The kid's very impressed by Americans and he wants to make money off them. And he sells him this creature so he can buy a cowboy hat. See, that's why the film works. There's all these scientific scenes, but also a kid trying to sell space monsters for a cowboy hat. That's the stuff that these Harryhausen films really have, is these weird characters that just work. Like, they pay attention to that stuff in a way that monster movies now don't as much. So you've got these creatures that are getting dealt with the locals, with the daughter of the scientist who's a medical person, and she's dealing with the people who survived and all the rest of it. And of course they find that the creature's escaped and they're trying to find it, and it escapes the sulfur pits because it likes the sulfur, obviously because it's mercury, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. And eventually it attacks the Colosseum. Now, nothing unusual happens in this film. Everything happens is like the scientists who are separate for a bit get together and realise they've got a common problem. Let's try and figure this out. You know, everything's very basic, but it's just charming because it's set in a different place than you usually expect, which is Europe and Italy. It is fun local characters. Then essentially it goes to a major city and destroys it. It's got a creature who's just a creature. He's not trying to kill lots of people. It's a creature. It's an animal. That's it. That's his own thing. It's just trying to survive. That's it. That's the whole film. An animal's trying to survive, but it's from Mercury. And there's spaceships and there's, Italian locals. There's just lots of stuff going on amidst the main plot. And that's something that actually grew a lot in Harryhausen films, because between into the 60s, a lot of the supporting characters in Harryhausen films were quite interesting, fun characters. Even though they're very basic, they realised that you couldn't just have the creatures. You had to have the weird character actors doing a lot of bits here or there, in the background, doing a lot of things. Have the villain have something interesting to do. So that's when, after this film, they moved to the Sinbad films and they moved on to more fantastic worlds, but actually allowed them to have more interesting character actors in the background. It meant they weren't just stuck with the stock central protagonists that basically were scientists, so outside the scientific stuff they didn't have that much going for them, unless you hired someone like Kev Tobey to do it, where he could add a lot of touches here or there, or have an eccentric scientist or something. They moved on from that to actually have characters, just side characters who could be eccentric, just to make it interesting between the monster fights. So that's where they went, and then they went to Europe and had a lot of actors from Britain and all around Europe, just because they were good at filling out these kind of, eccentric characters. So this was the end of an era with the going to Italy was kind of the turning point where they went to a much more European base. So the kind of early monster movies became a case of they're now going to movies with monsters in them, really. There's a world with monsters in them. It's not just a monster movie. And I think they were the more beloved films, actually, when you went to the world with a lot more monsters. It allowed Harryhausen to have more than one monster. Because until now, it's just one monster you had to deal with. Or, in the first Flying Saucer, it was just lots of versions of the same monster. Now you could vary it up and have 3 or 4 monsters in a film. So it worked a lot better. And you could actually have actors acting against that and having different reactions to it. So this was the good early stuff, but I would definitely say some are better than others. So that's me really covered these films. I mean, they're hard to talk about though, to be honest, because it's just the scientist here, the scientist there, did this. Very basic. They're very hard to describe. Even if you've watched them, the thing you remember is the monsters and the little set pieces. They are basic stories. There's not much meat to the bone, really, beyond the characters of the monsters and what the director could do with certain actors who are interesting. But a lot of the time they were dealing with, you know, actors who had limits and characters had limits and just trying their best. And they had the narratives who had very much limited potential, so you knew the A, B, C of each story quite easily. So, but definitely a case of the final film, 5 million years from Earth, 5 million miles to Earth, sorry. You could see them changing it slightly there. They were getting a bit bored with the formula, so you could see them adding a lot more character actors in there and just trying to have funny little bits that would, like the idea of the creature being found with being dealt with this local doctor, was much more something that had been in later films than the other stuff. It was just much more character actor business. So you could even see in there there was moving to Europe and they were actually trying something different, really. They were still stuck with certain scenes of the American military. I think as soon as they went to the American military, they were off to the races. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm hoping it wasn't too rambling. And I'll be doing the kind of order of Harryhausen films, because I've already covered Jason Argonaut and the Sinbad films. I'll try some of the other ones. And I've also done the Clash of Titans. So I'll be doing other ones like Valley Gwangi and things like that. Or, you know, the Middle Era ones, 1 million years BC or whatever it's called. I can never remember that title. Stuff like that I'll be covering in another video. So I'll see you later. Right, bye for now.